Fists together, I am somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody.
Red and yellow, brown, black, and white. We're all precious in God's sight. Everybody is somebody. Stop the violence. Save the children. Stop bullying. Save the children.
Hold your head high. Stick your chest out. You can make it. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive.
Good morning, the push is on, and thank you for tuning into this edition of the Saturday Morning Forum. I'm Tim Lee.
And I'm Dr. Sonia Whitaker.
And today we want to first do as we always do, and that's to start with shout outs. First, we're going to shout out you, the viewers. Thank you so much for tuning in on this Saturday morning. And we want to shout out to all of our viewers who are viewing from the Impact Network. If you're viewing from the Impact Network, please know that you can use the DVR function to save this content and to share it.
And we also want to give a shout out to those that are our YouTube and Facebook subscribers. We love the fact that you are there and always here with us.
So press like right now, share us on Facebook, share us on YouTube, and subscribe. We also want to shout out all the mothers. Happy Mother's Day.
And I'm a mother, so I can certainly appreciate it. Happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers nationwide and internationally.
And Mother's Day is also a special time. What time is that?
Well, what comes right after Mother's Day usually is graduations,
Hey!
right? So we want to give a shout out to all of the graduates, the graduating class of 2022. You did it.
And speaking of graduation ceremonies, we want to congratulate our very own founder, Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson, who is going to be receiving an honorary doctorate degree from Benedict College in South Carolina, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Congratulations, Rev.
Reverend Jackson also spoke in New York at the Diversity Incorporated conference with Questlove. They spoke about their documentary, The Summer of Soul, which was nominated and won an Oscar.
Absolutely. And we also want you to mark your calendars.
Yes.
First of all, mark your calendar, please, for Tuesday, May 17th from 6:30 p.m. to 8 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. We're thrilled to announce that Push Excel is prepared to launch the next event in our town hall series entitled Shaping America's Education Agenda. The focus of this event will be on the fact that on May 17th, it will be the 68th anniversary of Brown versus Board of Education. So mark your calendar so that you can participate in this free national virtual event.
And on the next day, we want you to mark your calendars for the Push Tech Summit. That's going to be May the 18th and May the 19th. And we want you to know that it's going to be completely virtual. If you want to know more about the diversity, inclusion, and equity efforts in the technical world, we want you to make sure that you register today. You can register at www.rainbowpushsv.org. Again, that's www.rainbowpushsv.org.
And we also want you to mark your calendars for June 18th through June 22nd for the annual International Rainbow Push Coalition Convention, which will be held in Chicago, Illinois. You can register for this free event, which is actually going to take place in person this year, and we're excited about that. Please visit rainbowpush.org to reserve your spot.
We want you to stay connected with the Saturday Morning Forum because coming up later, we have Bishop Tavis Grant, who's going to bring you action in the field.
We also have Todd Yeary, who's going to talk with us about due process.
And Dr. Wilson's going to come back and she's going to display some beautiful quilts right here in Chicago.
And we can't do this work without you. We need your support. In order for us to provide and continue to provide the support that we do nationally and internationally, we want you to support us by texting the word push to 41444. Again, text push to 41444 and offer your support.
You can also go to our website at www.rainbowpush.org and leave a donation that way. But thank you so much for the work that you are doing to help us do the work that we are doing. with your help, we can keep hope alive and keep pushing for you, because pushing for you is what we do.
Keep hope alive.
Well, we have a real special for you today. Many of you are wondering, how do we celebrate Juneteenth? How do we celebrate and remember our ancestors who were not originally slaves but came from the continent of Africa? And so we have something very special to show and share with you. We have with us, I know you miss her, Deborah Crable.
Hey, how are you?
She's always on everything, radio, television. She's the first of many firsts. And she's brought with us someone that you should know.
Hi, I'm Renaud Diallo.
Oh, Diallo. And she's going to show us this quilting project, which is a part of a festival that you're hosting this summer. You want to tell us a little bit about it?
Absolutely. Well, the African Festival of the Arts is entering its 33rd year. We're celebrating our 33rd year. And it is a premier initiative by Africa International House. So on June the 18th, Juneteenth weekend, that Saturday, we are hosting a symposium that will address the issues of quilt making in the African American tradition. It's called Art and Agency, Exploring the African American Quilting Tradition from Africa to America, and in all the ways that quilting and quilt making defines agency socially, economically, politically, and artistically, culturally. So it'll be an exciting conversation, and I wanted to have Renaud here today because she was the first one to introduce the Quilting Pavilion to the African Festival of the Arts. And want to share with us the genesis of that. What inspired you to start that?
Well, okay, I had a collection of African print fabric, and I'm not a seamstress, and I wanted to do something with it. So I decided to make a quilt. And I made my first quilt, and I was so impressed with the beauty of it that I continued to make them. And my husband and his friends said, someone might want to buy these. And so, okay, we took them to the African Festival of the Arts, to one of the vendors there. And it was like a drawing card. I had been looking for all the African American quilt makers and looked as though they were underground. I couldn't find them. But when these quilts went to the festival, it was like a drawing card. People came, they oohed and ahed, they talked about quilt making, and it really even piqued my interest a bit more about this whole art form. So I started doing some research and investigation, and I thought, this is so important to our community and to our culture. We need to celebrate it. And so with that, my idea was born that we should have a quilt pavilion at the African Festival of the Arts.
What we're trying to do here is display art, African American art, African artists, music, and quilting is a part of our culture. Yes. And when people talk about Juneteenth, well, I think that a great part of Juneteenth should be the history of how our people survived the slave years, the post-slavery years, and quilting was how we kept warm.
So not only did it keep us warm, but it is believed that there were messages that were included in those quilts.
Oh, they were. That's how the slaves
Absolutely.
escaped.
So they would hang them on the clotheslines, and depending on how they were positioned, as the lore goes, but that'll be one of the things that we'll be discussing during our symposium. Is it fact or is it lore? And but there were messages in the quilts that would direct people to the slaves on the path that they should go to freedom. So we'll be exploring all that. But the other thing that I find very interesting as I show this one, and this is a flag actually, okay? But this, Renaud, is an applique technique?
Yes, it's applique. And this was done in Dahomey. Now, it stated that they may not have put 3 layers of fabric together, but they did bring the aesthetics here to America, our enslaved women.
Now, what about this one?
This was a very first quilt made at the festival, and it's a spiritual quilt. Renaud, why don't you share with us the gungun?
Well, this is the gungun. It's a spirit dancer, if I'm not mistaken, from Nigeria. This year, the artist that did the poster, Dio, he did the Agungu. And so we decided that we wanted to keep that same theme going. And so I constructed this as the medallion for the festival quilt. And people that attended the festival, they put in their blocks, and it's just a very, very spiritual.
And so if you want to know the history of quilting, you want to see, and you want to buy a quilt, you have to have a quilt. I'm going to get a quilt.
Yep, you need to get a quilt, absolutely. And the thing that is also very important that we'll be discussing on the agency piece, which I'm sure will be very important to you in the mission here at Rainbow Push. When you think in terms of how slave women made these quilts, and not only that, but a lot of people now know about the G's Bend quilters who quilted, had those quilt bees like your grandmother did, and they sold the quilts so they could provide for their families. The same as the women over in Liberia are now doing post their civil crisis.
And they're selling the quilts.
They sell the quilts so they can provide for their families. So we were talking also about the agency that exists around these quilts, not only in terms as an economic base, and artistically, how do we position ourselves? And because of the G's Bend ladies, their escalation to prominence, it now gives us another pathway, portal to talk about the significance of the Black aesthetic. We have Dr. Vaughn Manley coming in from Northwestern University. She was one who Toni Morrison said, you have to make a quilt for me. And she did. She'll be coming to talk about that, talking about how quilting shows up in literature and how women throughout the ages have used quilting as a means to define their sense of agency. We also have Basil Kincaid. We're putting the spotlight on him. He's in Ghana right now with the Reclamation Project. And through the Reclamation Project, he is taking things that they find on the street, throwaway plastic bottles, credit card shavings, and creating magnificent quilts and clothing. But watch this. He's creating a cottage industry for these young people that they can now define their own economic agency and build communities as a result.
And so we're going to have a quilting bee here at Push.
Beautiful.
Mrs. Jackson has challenged me and others to get sewing machines and really get into sewing, teaching our young girls and young men how to sew. And quilting is a communication tool. It's a way you share family stories.
As well as its therapeutic value. Quilting is healing. And that is another, women need to fellowship. And I say women, there are men quilters as well, but people need to fellowship. And this was a way to come together, share stories. I always said that there's something, with the cutters and the needles going up and down, and that's very aggressive kind of, but at the end, you have a work of beauty.
This is amazing. And so if you're interested in the Push Excel Quilting Project that they're going to help us with, but also going to this festival.
Yes. So if you want to know more about the Festival Pavilion and our event on June the 18th, go to www.aihusa.org. That's Africa International House USA.org. And you can get all the information about the symposium and the
you're going to get
pavilion.
information about the Rainbow Push Convention, which opens June 18th. We're in the morning, we're celebrating graduates, and we're going to have quilts on display. I guarantee you.
Yeah, she just recruited us, but that is done.
And we're going to teach young people throughout the summer, and older people, if you're interested, how to quilt this year, this summer. It's going to be part of our summer program. Quilting is magical, it's spiritual, and it is engaging, and we want to engage the family. We want you to begin to start cutting your family. You can make your family quilt this summer at Push.
And there's a saying, I don't know, it's anonymous, but it says, a blanket warms your body, but a quilt warms your soul.
That's what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I'm
Thank
so
you.
excited. I'm going to get a quilt.
Yeah, you're going to get a quilt, and we're going to have a wonderful display for you on location for the conference.
We thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us for this week's Saturday Morning Forum. As we continue to face a rapidly changing political and economic landscape, It is important that we not disengage from making the essential demands and raising the critical issues that promote equity and fairness for all in America. The fight for civil rights and social justice is arguably more important now than it has ever been. And we must come together to make sure that our votes, our voices, and our values are heard. That is why you should mark your calendar and make plans now to join us for the Rainbow Push Coalition International Convention to be held June 18th through 22nd here in Chicago. We will convene at the South Shore Cultural Center to raise awareness, explore, and demand access to the new markets and opportunities that are emerging as part of today's continuing fight for racial justice and global human rights in the age of a new and persistent COVID normal. We will gather to discuss housing equity and closing the racial wealth gap, exploring access and opportunity as local and state governments deploy recently appropriated dollars under the American Rescue Plan and infrastructure laws. We will take a look at diversity, equity, and inclusion in C-suites and boardrooms, as well as develop strategies to continue the fight for voting rights and police reform. It will be a packed 5 days. But you don't want to miss any of it. Go to rainbowpush.org to stay up to date on the convention preparations and the issues that matter to all of us. Later in the show, in this week's Due Process, I will update you on key legal issues concerning economic justice, international affairs, and the fight for reparations, along with a call to action to raise the intensity of our fight to resist a return to the racially harmful era of states' rights laws and policies that are the relics of the Jim Crow era. So stay tuned for Due Process. On behalf of Reverend Jackson and the entire Rainbow Push Coalition family, we say Happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers, those who have given birth, and those who have stood in the gap and given presence and nurture that has sustained our communities and helped us to thrive. We thank you for your sacrifice, your persistence, your resilience, faith, and love. And we pray that all that you have given to family and community is rewarded by tangible and intangible thank yous, flowers, and faithfulness for the causes of our people, for all people. Your strength and example continue to serve us well. Happy Mother's Day to all of you. And thank you for joining us for this week's Saturday Morning Forum.
Hey everybody, Dr. Joseph Bryant Jr. here from the West Coast, Silicon Valley, Bay Area. All of the work that God has given us to do under the leadership of Reverend Jesse Jackson. Listen, it's time for you to pause for a minute and get with us because the 7th annual Push Tech Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Conference is coming. And I need you to register right now. Stop what you're doing, go to our page, make sure you register, and make sure you follow us on our brand new social media pages, RPC Push Tech on all social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Make sure you pass this on to your network. There's going to be so much information about our certification programs, our job training programs, opportunities in digital expansion for minority businesses. Whatever your flow is, whatever your like is, whatever your passion is, we got you. Young folks, we got you. Job seekers, we got you. Technology gurus, we got you. Folks that just like to hang out in the metaverse, we got you. A whole new flow of experiences for everybody that's going to come to the Push Tech Conference. We're going to be walking through the White House with President Obama virtually. We're going to have insights given to us from Angela Rye and Congresswoman Barbara Lee. We're going to be honoring some phenomenal technology leaders and industry leaders. We're going to be doing NFTs, NIL, the whole 9 yards, but you got to be there. Get your ticket to opportunity. Make sure that you're following us on on our new RPC Push Tech pages. Make sure you hashtag out diversity and inclusion, hashtag Push Tech 22, hashtag Jesse Jackson, hashtag Rainbow Push. But most of all, get with us. Make sure you're there in our virtual experience like no other. Our Push Tech Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Conference, May 18th and 19th. See you there.
This is Bishop Tavis Grant, the National Field Director for the Rainbow Push Coalition. And I want to thank you for joining our International Saturday Morning Forum. You know, as we emanate here from Chicago, the work and legacy of Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson is relentless and never ends. We've been focusing a lot of our attention on breaking into new markets. And I want to personally invite you to be a part of our annual convention in Chicago, June 18th through June 22nd. As we are breaking into new markets. And part of that movement and initiative is the regalvanizing and reorganizing of workers. You know, as we have just come out of May Day was a historic moment, started in the 1800s here in Chicago, when workers who were overwhelmed by low wages and high cost of living made a decision that they would unionize and formalize in a way that today we have strong unions, we have sustainable wages, and an opportunity for all people to have equity in the workplace. And so we've been working across the country with Amazon workers, for workers in states that have right to hire and right to fire laws that egregiously impose initiatives that keep profits high and wages low. We believe in a sustainable living wage, and we believe that every worker has the right and the responsibility to protect their rights, stand up for their rights, and that is the reason why Reverend Jesse Jackson has been so very supportive of all of our union and our labor leaders across the country. And so as we look at models like Amazon, Google, and Tesla, we know that there's a phenomenal opportunity to bring about balance, to bring about equity and inclusion along with diversity when there is fairness in the workplace. I want you to be a part of the fastest growing social justice army in America by going to rainbowpush.org and becoming a member today. Your voice, your presence, and your feet in the street afford us every opportunity to make sure that we get equal protection under the law as we are keeping hope alive.
Mommy is a hero!
Who's your hero?
My mom. And I love my mom because she takes care of me. Nobody takes care of me like my mom.
My greatest role model is my mom because she's a teacher and I really want to be a teacher. Then she's like very creative and I'm creative. And this is a lesson she gave me, and she said always remain a lady, and that'll like stick to me forever. And
my mom is loving, she is kind, she is forgiving, she is caring because she teaches me responsibility. She's teaching me responsibility for me to work hard and get my grades up so I can go to a good school.
I'm afraid of dogs, heights, and butts. And my mom encourages me to get over my fears and to step out of my comfort zone.
I love my mom because she's kind, she's sweet, she buys me whatever I want.
Also something else my mommy told me. But that privileges are bad and responsibilities are good because my responsibilities are cleaning my room and make sure I do my work. The privileges are phone, tablet, TV, even computer.
So we were going to Virginia And there's a pool in Virginia. There's a kiddie one with a gate so you won't just run into the big pool. And there's a big one with no gate. And while I was there, I saw other people swimming, so I just thought I could. So I just jumped in the big kid pool. I tried to get up, so I got up, and I was yelling, so my mom helped me because she heard me yelling, and that's how my mom helped me from almost drowning.
I admire my mom most because she has her own business, and right now she's actually helping me with my own, and it's called Jelly Bean Creations, and I'm actually wearing one of these shirts right now. She went to take me to the mall, and it's fun jump. You jump high and then back down, and then high and then back down. It's called a master jump. And you go up, and my mommy take me there a lot. She even took me yesterday.
One day I was swinging, but I was jumped off, and I fell off the swings, and then mommy hugged me.
I remember when Mommy let us go to the water park and I went down the water slide. The prayer that my mom taught me was the guardian angel prayer. Angel of God, my guardian dear, to whom God's love commits me here. Ever this day, be at our side, to light and guard, to lead and guide. Amen.
Thanks for being a hero.
Push Excel's goal is to inspire students to strive for excellence in education in spite of personal, family, and community challenges that they might experience. How do we do this? By advocating for educational policies that guarantee equal funding for all students without regard to race or economic standing. By engaging parents, students, and teachers in pursuing high-quality education and striving for educational excellence at every level. And by forging partnerships with community-based and public sector stakeholders in education. Now, Push Excel is a national model program with the purpose of connecting principals, parents, popular personalities, and students in a bond and to support students at every level on the educational ladder. Now, we want you to become a member of the Rainbow Push Coalition and Push Excel. Your annual membership can help us to change policies that impact students, colleges, and universities all around the country. So step up and sign up today. Membership is only $35, and if you're a student or a senior, $15. Just go to our website, rainbowpush.org, and push join to become a member or push donate to support the Push Excel program. You can also text the word Push Excel, that's PUSHEXCEL, to 41444 on your cell phone, and you can give us any amount that you feel comfortable giving or call us at 773-256-2775. Wherever you are, you can support us as we keep pushing for you. And remember to keep hope alive.
Today, we have one of the best organizers in the country. This was one of the first young organizers that worked for Operation Push and later on Reverend Jackson's presidential campaigns. This is Ray Lewis Thornton. You may have heard about her across the years, but there's so much that you don't know about Ray Lewis Thornton, and we are excited that you enjoyed our broadcast. I know you're going to be at our convention.
I absolutely will be there.
At the Women's Luncheon. You're going to hear her story there, but we want to give you a preview of a book that you've just written, a new book.
I have. I've spent the last 3 years working on my memoir. It is currently in pre-sales, and it released May 18th.
What's the name of the book?
Unprotected, a memoir.
You'll see it on the screen, Unprotected. And I think it's really going to be interesting for those of you who have daughters in particular, but have children. Those of you who are pastors in churches, you need to look at this book as a part of your book clubs. It's about ministry, it's about politics, it's about trauma, right?
It is. It is all
So tell us
that.
a little bit about the book.
Ooh, okay, so most people know me as the face of AIDS. I was that Black woman 28 years ago that First told my story on the cover of Essence magazine. And, I've spent, these 28 years crisscrossing the country, talking about HIV, educating, challenging stigma and shame. But this book is the story. And so it starts when I'm 6 years old. And with the loss of my paternal grandfather, who was my raiser, who was my caregiver, and then my life changed, and I become unprotected as a little girl. And I take you through this journey of my life, and you see how trauma shaped the trajectory of my life that landed me with HIV, but also landed me in ministry.
So when you say unprotected, and so many children today are unprotected. Parents are in prison, parents are dead, parents have lost custody of them. And so the children are in a system, a state system, which leaves them unprotected in many ways in foster care. Sometimes they get a good place, bad place. What happened when you say unprotected? You said there was a journey that you...
There was a journey. My parents were heroin addicts.
Both parents?
Both parents. I was born, I weighed 3 pounds and stayed in an incubator for a month. In 1962, so that was a miracle in and of itself.
That you survived it?
That I survived it. And my father was shot when I was 3. In the back of his head. It was an accidental shooting by his cousin. And my mother lived a life, my biological mother lived a life of a heroin addict for 20-something years. My maternal grandmother did not want me. My mom's white. And to my grandfather, my dad's father took me to raise me. And he died when I was 6.
Wow.
And his third wife ended up raising me. And you'll meet Mama in my book. Mama went to work every day. She cooked a meal every day. She started her morning with Christian Brothers and ended her day with Christian Brothers.
Rewind. Mama went to work every day.
Went to work every day.
Cooked a meal every day.
Cooked a meal every day.
But had her Christian Brothers every day.
Every morning and every night and throughout the day at work.
She was a working alcoholic.
She was a working, functional alcoholic.
Wow.
But the thing about living with Mama was there was the only certainty in my home was uncertainty. And so there wasn't enough that I could do to make her like me, to make her love me. I mean, she could beat my butt in the morning.
Because the sun was shining.
Because the sun was shining. Well, one morning she threw water in my face to find her brush at 6 o'clock, and then I had to turn around and prepare myself to go to school. Haven't just been traumatized by this. That evening, she brought home that leather coat that I always wanted. And so it was living in that dichotomy of where my abnormal, Viktor Frankl talks about how an abnormal existence becomes a normal way of life. And that's what happened to me.
So now, in case you all didn't know, Ray is very well educated. And she has studied a lot of things. And as we talk about mental health crisis in this country today, many people want to paint it's COVID. No, many children grow up in trauma each and every day. They live in communities that are traumatic, but they also live in homes. So talk a little bit about
They do live in homes. And, you know, I think most young people most adults don't even realize that they've lived in trauma. It's because trauma is so normal that we don't think about it as trauma. This is just how it was. This is how Mama behaved. This is how Daddy behaved. And so you become used to it. It becomes a way of life. And through my book, you'll see this little girl latching on to, and how just remarkably, Reverend Wilson, how God just brought the right people in my life from the moment my grandfather passed well into, my 20s and 30s. And part of that was Operation Push. Part of that was Reverend Jackson. And so I talk about how I come to Push as an intern, a broken girl, just turned 21.
Full of energy.
Full of energy.
She was broken, but she was.
I was working. This is how God works. When I was 14, I heard Reverend Jackson preach a sermon at Second Baptist Church in Evanston. It was the Easter Sunday sermon. And I'd never heard anyone talk about the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ as a suffering servant. And I cried and cried and cried, but I walked away believing that God had a plan for my life. And through all my missteps, and there are lots of them, and they're juicy.
They're in the book.
They're in the book. We're not telling you today.
Go get the book.
Fast forward 6 years later, I'm an intern at Operation Push, and Reverend Jackson walks into we used to have staff meetings at in the little chapel.
Right.
And I'm like, that's really Reverend Jackson. And, you know, Reverend Barrow and Frank Watkins, and we had just started the Southern Crusade where we were registering people across the South, which helped to launch his candidacy on the backdrop of he and Lou Palmer registering all these people to vote to get Harold Washington elected as mayor. And I took in everything. So at the end of the internship, I was asked to stay on with the possibility of Reverend Jackson running for president. And I moved to DC with a whole host of us and was the Deputy National Youth Director for the campaign in '84. And then in '88, so I was working under Tyrone Crider in '84, and in '88, I was the National Youth Director for the campaign, organizing young people across the country for the campaign. And you know, being at Push, you know, catapulted me into this purpose that I thought God had for my life. But what was so incredible is that all of the training ground at Push and Rainbow and the campaigns were preparation for the ministry I'm doing now.
I know that this book is going to become a bestseller in print and digital and every platform, but also I believe it's going to be a movie. But before it's the movie, you better get the book. And it's something that every church, every denomination, every faith tradition, we have too many young people who are living in trauma. And even if we could break the chapters up and share them with your book club, with your congregation, invite the Reverend Ray. She did go to seminary too. She's done a lot of stuff. Some of it is in the book, much of it is in the book, but I want you to get the book. We have to begin to support our young people who have given a life of service as she has. So I want every one of you to get her book. You go to Amazon right now and get the book. And if you do Amazon Smile, it'll benefit Push Excel. But you want to get the book, want to ask your church, the women in your church, the women's ministry in particular, make this book. And the reason we're doing it today is Mother's Day. Get your mother a book, a copy of this book for Mother's Day. She won't be able to get it until the 18th, but it's okay. Order it today, and then it'll be have it delivered to your mother, your significant female in your life. But men, you should read this book because this trauma is not one gender, right?
It's not. It's not. And you know what? I learned that men have some of the same experiences that, you know, young boys have some of the same experiences that young girls have. And I think that if we looked at trauma closely, especially within our families and our homes, we'd probably understand some of this gang issue.
And so it's the God factor, as Mrs. Jacqueline Jackson would say. And she has a lot of our names in the book. If you want to know why we're in there, read the book and get the book. It is called
Unprotected, a Memoir. It is currently on sale at Amazon.com and at BarnesandNobles.com.
You don't want to miss this. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Reverend Wilson.
And we're gonna have you on everything. Thank you.
Welcome to this week's Due Process. I'm Todd Yeary. We begin this week with updates on two stories that we have been tracking. First, in California, a state Superior Court judge has rebuffed a challenge to the return of property to descendants of Willa and Charles Bruce. The Bruces had purchased the land and established a successful beachfront lodge that catered to blacks during the era of racial segregation. However, in 1924, the Manhattan Beach City Council condemned the lodge and other nearby black-owned properties by imposing eminent domain under the guise of building a public park. The families filed suit charging that they were victims of a racially justified campaign to remove them from their land. The Bruces were awarded $14,500, but their lodge was demolished. The couple's economic and entrepreneurial genius was prevented any opportunity to restore the business they worked so hard to build. The beachfront that was once available to blacks because of the Bruces' business savvy was now off limits to all except whites. The city eventually turned the park over to the state of California, which later transferred the property to Los Angeles County to oversee the maintenance of the site. However, in 2007, then Mayor Mitch Ward, who was at that time the only black elected official in the history of Manhattan Beach, helped to rename the site Bruce's Beach Park. After the California legislature passed and Governor Gavin Newsom signed into law a provision allowing for the return of the Bruce's land, Joseph Ryan filed a complaint arguing that the land transfer did not serve a public purpose and challenged the constitutionality of the recently enacted law. Judge Mitchell Beckloff rejected the petition, ruling that the return of the land to the Bruces was valid to remedy past government-sanctioned discriminatory action. Beckloff wrote, "Righting a government wrong perpetrated in breach of our core and fundamental constitutional principles works to strengthen governmental integrity, represents accountability in government, and works to eliminate structural racism and bias." The decision by the Los Angeles County government to return the land has been affirmed, and it is expected that the descendants of Willa and Charles Bruce will finally get back the land the Bruces purchased back in 1912. A recent study has determined that black farmers in the U.S. lost at least $326 billion of acreage during the 20th century. The study, which quantified land loss as a contributor to the loss of black wealth and a widening racial wealth gap, determined that much of the loss was due to discriminatory lending policies and forced sales of co-owned land among heirs. Dr. Dania Francis, the lead author of the study, affirmed that wealth in land is one way in this country that opportunity for families and generations is established. Experts have determined that black farmers owned more than 16 million acres of land in 1910. By 2017, that number had dwindled to 4.7 million acres, or about 0.5% of all farmland in the country. While the $326 billion is a very conservative number, it establishes why the need for restitution and relief is so badly needed. That relief was part of the American Rescue Plan Act due to the advocacy of Georgia Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock. However, implementation of the restitution provisions is currently stalled due to litigation advanced by white farmers who argue the proposed restitution is discriminatory. In response to the ongoing equity crisis in agriculture, the U.S. Department of Agriculture recently released its Equity Action Plan, which outlines steps the department will take to promote equity and improve access to its programs and services. Recognizing the equity gap and gaining access to critical resources and technical assistance in underserved communities, the plan seeks to remediate many of the harms caused by disparately created and implemented programs that have catered to and benefited those with land and money while leaving those behind without resources or other privilege, among them racial entitlement. Created in response to President Biden's executive order advancing racial equity and support to underserved communities, the plan will focus on expanding technical assistance and helping farmers access USDA programs, including business planning, marketing, and other essential technical skills. The plan also calls for increased infrastructure investments that benefit underserved communities, as well as reducing barriers to department programs that often put disadvantaged farmers and landowners at greater economic peril. Again, we will continue to highlight the equity plan and the Department of Agriculture's efforts to advance empirical, not theoretical equity in the coming weeks, so stay tuned. Meanwhile, a judge in Tulsa County, Oklahoma, has ruled that a lawsuit demanding reparations for survivors of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre and their descendants can proceed. The ruling means that the case, which is proceeding 100 years after the massacre, may provide legal redress for some of the harm done to those who survived the horrors of May 1921. The massacre killed as many as 300 blacks, injured 800, and left more than 10,000 without homes as a result of one of the worst incidents of racial terror aided by government participation in U.S. history. Tulsa County District Judge Caroline Wall ruled in part against a motion to dismiss the lawsuit. Oklahoma State Representative Regina Goodwin, whose district includes Greenwood, noted that the case gives the survivors a chance to continue their fight for justice. The lead plaintiffs in the case are three of the living survivors of the massacre: Leslie Benningfield Randall, Viola Fletcher, and Hughes Van Alice. All three are more than 100 years old and were in attendance at the hearing on Monday. This is not the first time that litigation has been pursued seeking reparations in the aftermath of the massacre. In 2005, the U.S. Supreme Court declined to hear a reparations case appeal after federal appellate courts ruled that the statute of limitations had run, denying the petitioners any redress. The case, now proceeding through the state courts, it is hoped will provide the justice that these plaintiffs and other descendants have waited for so long. In the suit, 7 organizations are named as directly involved in the massacre, including the Oklahoma National Guard and the Tulsa Chamber of Commerce. Additionally, the city of Tulsa has reopened its investigation into whether there are mass graves from the massacre after a mass grave containing as many as 35 coffins was found in the Oaklawn Cemetery in 2020. While the litigation is seeking restitution, it is noted that no white person was ever charged for the criminal acts of the massacre. More than 200 people attended the hearing on Monday afternoon, with onlookers waiting intently to hear whether the case would move forward. Now that Judge Wall has ruled, we all remain fixated on the evidence and the arguments that will be made in an effort to finally secure some level of justice for the racial terrorism that was unleashed in the Greenwood section of Tulsa 100 plus years ago. The United States government has reclassified Brittany Griner's status to that of being wrongfully detained by the Russian government. The redesignation and reclassification of her detention status is believed to indicate a change in strategy to secure Griner's release. While government officials have declined to say what led to the change in designation, many have urged the Biden administration to do more to secure Brittany's release. Reports also indicate that former UN Ambassador Bill Richardson has agreed to work on Griner's case. Much of the information concerning her detention has been kept out of the public discussion, partly due to the escalating conflicts in Europe, as well as concerns that Vladimir Putin might use Griner's case as a negotiating ploy against the United States. Prior to the reclassification, Brittany Griner's case had been handled administratively as part of the consular process. The WNBA and the WNBA Players Union have expressed optimism and support for the new developments in Brittany's case. The focus began to shift after former Marine Trevor Reed was released last week, and Reed had been held in Russia since 2019. Brittany Griner plays women's basketball in Russia during the WNBA offseason and was arrested in February at a Moscow airport while entering the country, allegedly carrying vaping cartridges that contained hashish oil. While Griner has not been formally charged, she is scheduled to have a hearing on May 19th. Rainbow Push Coalition and Reverend Jackson will continue to monitor the developments concerning Brittany Griner's case and will continue to lend our voice and support to the Biden administration to facilitate a timely release of Brittany Griner to her family. In Alabama, researchers are preparing to explore the wreckage of the last known slave vessel to bring African captives to the United States. The Alabama Historical Commission has released $1 million that will be used to support the exploration and evaluation of the remnants of the Clotilda. The ship was set afire and sunk to avoid discovery after illegally dropping off more than 100 African captives on the Alabama coast in 1860. The voyage was conducted more than 50 years after Congress outlawed the international slave trade. Researchers who have been evaluating the viability of the ship have indicated that most of the vessel remains intact, including the holding cell used to imprison African captives during the horrific journey from West Africa. It is believed that the section below deck where African captives were held is still largely in one piece after being buried for more than a century in a section of the Mobile River that has not been dredged. Some researchers have questioned what might be found in the hull of the ship, including containers, shackles, and human DNA. Some of the enslaved Africans who had been transported on the Clotilda later settled in a community they started called Africatown, located a few miles north of downtown Mobile. The ship's voyage had been financed by a wealthy Mobile businessman, and as the demand for reparations continues across many fronts, the findings from the exploration of the Clotilda may prove pivotal in providing context and evidence to the psychological and emotional trauma imposed upon African bodies and the political indifference of the powers that were in promoting such harm. I guess this exploration will have to resist being classified as another effort at advancing critical race theory. However, we know that whatever might be discovered will further embed the demand for racial justice in the truth of the relics of the history of America that was, and in many ways still is, hostile to Black bodies and Black interests. Finally, in the furor and frenzy of the week after the clandestine release of a draft Supreme Court opinion believed to lay the foundation for the overturning of the decision in Roe v. Wade, we must resist the temptation to oversimplify the radical reasoning anticipated from the High Court. The language of Justice Samuel Alito in arguing that the determination of whether women have agency over what happens with and to their bodies, even in instances of sexual violence, which is often under and unreported, is not only a sign that the nation is returning to the age where the government has a property interest in the bodies of some people by gender and race, but a sign that this court is crafting curious and creative justifications that will eventually lead beyond the decision in Roe, and will eventually set a focus on the case most problematic to the interest of white racial supremacy, Brown versus Board of Education. Because the 14th Amendment's assertions of the rights of due process, equal protection, and birthright citizenship has undermined the efforts to permanently encode racial stratification in the operation of America, this court stands prepared to move closer to the days of Plessy versus Ferguson, even as we anticipate the seating of the first African-American woman on the court. Justice-designate Jackson's ascension to the bench is not merely an emotional achievement, but the outcome of persistent, sustained political engagement that has proven effective, at least until now, in ensuring that those who were not included in the phrase "we the people" have place and presence in the legal structure of America. This upcoming election cycle is about much more than Roe v. Wade. It is about protecting the advancements that have only come by pushing the expansion and capacity of the Constitution, whether through the 13th, 14th, 15th, 19th, or 24th Amendments, or amendments yet to be proposed and adopted. We cannot simply sit by and wallow in our frustration about the condition of our politics. We must ready ourselves to re-engage and recommit to the principles that honor the sacrifices of those who were held in the hold of the Clotilda and other vessels like it. Here's what I need you to do today. First, if you are not registered to vote, register today. Even if the primary in your state has already been held, you must get ready for the general election in November. Second, if you are registered, verify your voter registration, including your voting precinct and election dates. You may need to register again if you have been purged from the voter rolls. Third, make sure you understand what is on the ballot. Gather your friends and colleagues and go over the ballot. Know who is running for every office, from councilperson to congressperson, from local judges to the boards of education, from governors to mayors, district attorneys, and attorneys general. We must be informed about the what and the who. And finally, we must be ready to vote and show up. Voting is not a popularity contest. It is a demand for representation of our interests and our rights. We must show up along the width and breadth of this nation because the assertion of property interest that is vested in the control of the bodies of some can only be thwarted by a coordinated response called resistance. That is showing up to vote as if our very lives depend on it. Indeed, they do. For more information on how to stay engaged and ready to vote in the upcoming election, go to rainbowpush.org. That is this week's Due Process. I'm Todd Geary.
Wow, I sure hope you enjoyed that broadcast as much as we did. And we look forward to bringing you more very important content on next Saturday. In the meanwhile, don't forget to reserve your spot by participating in the National Critical Thinking Series sponsored by Push Excel. The event is taking place on Tuesday, May 17th. And in order to participate for this free live virtual event, all you got to do is visit pushexcel.org.
And right after that, there's the Push Tech Summit. And all you have to do to visit that virtual convention is to go to www.rainbowpushsv.org.
Yes, absolutely. The push is on. We also want you to donate. We need your support. And in order to provide your support, we've got a couple of different ways you can do it. One way is by texting the word push to 41444. Again, text push to 41444.
And the final way is to go to the website and donate at www.rainbowpush.org. And while you're there, don't forget to register for the International Rainbow Push Coalition Convention.
That's right.
Listen, that is, again, a great show. We really, really, really hope that you will tune in next week. And until next time, remember,
keep hope alive.
We're excited to get more people involved in Rainbow Push, supporting the programs of Push for Excellence and the Citizenship Education Fund. If you're interested in impacting public policies, if you believe in the scholarships that we give to thousands of students each and every year, you can become a policymaker by becoming a member of Rainbow Push right now. For an annual membership of $35, or if you're a student or senior, $15, you can help us make a difference in the lives of millions. How do you become a member? Visit our website at rainbowpush.org and press join. Or maybe you'd like to support us. You can text the word push, that's PUSH, to 41444 on your cell phone, and you can give any amount you feel comfortable giving. You can also call us at 773-256-2775, or go to rainbowpush.org and push donate. Wherever you are, you can support us as we keep pushing for you.